If you're going to take the entrance exam for high school, then this video is important for you. And right now, I'm going to solve in detail each of the math skill exercises that are in the 2025 guide. For high school admission specifically, I'm going to solve the ones that are in the EcoEms guide. That is, for admission to UNAM, or for admission to IPN. But if you're going to take the entrance exam for any other high school, either way, it's useful for you to study with this material too, because it's important for you to practice a little more and also to develop your mathematical thinking. Also, you don't necessarily have to study only the guides from the current year. I mean, right now we're already in 2026, right? But as you can see, I'm working on the 2025 guide because it's still useful for you. So, whether you're taking the exam in 2026, 2030, whatever the year, what I'm going to explain next will still be useful for you. So please, pay close attention so that, as I said, you can have a wider range of different exercises and keep developing your mathematical thinking. All right, let's start with exercise number 1. It says, find the missing number in the sequence. They give us some numbers and also 4 possible answer choices. So, let's solve it. Look, the first thing I'm going to do is pay attention to the difference between 2 consecutive terms. So, what's the difference between 49 and 62? Or in other words, what do I need to do to 49 to get 62? Well, I would have to add 13 to it, right? If I do 49 plus 13, that gives me 62, right? Now, something very similar. I look at what's the difference between 77 and 62. Or in other words, what do I need to do to 62 to get 77? Would you agree with me that I add 15 to it, right? Well, since we don't know what number goes here, I'm going to skip over to here. Let's skip and take a look over here as well. What do I do to 113 to get 134? In this case, I would have to add 21 to it, right? We agree on that. So let's see. Here we have plus 13, then plus 15. So, I suppose the next one would have to be plus 17, right? Since we're adding odd numbers. And it's also increasing, right? And look, from here to here, then it would have to be plus 19. And look, the next one would have to be plus 21. So it's correct, right? Look, plus 13 plus 15, plus 17 plus 19, and plus 21. Therefore, the number that goes here would have to be the one that, when added to 77, well, actually, it would have to be the one that results from adding 17 to 77, right? That would have to be it. So let's see. Let's do the operation. So we put 77 and we're going to add 17 to it, right? Let's do the addition. 7 plus 7 is 14. Carry the 1, 7 plus 1 is 8, and plus 1 is 9. I'm getting 94. So as far as I can tell, a 94 has to go here. And see, that's right. It's in option C. But let's see, we're still not sure if this is actually correct. Correct. If when I do 94 plus 19, it does give me 113. So let's see, I'm going to do it too. Let's do it right here. Look, so we take 94 and we're going to add 19 to it. Let's see if in fact, it does give me 113. It should, right? If it does, that means we've got it. All right, here we go. 4 plus 9 is 13. So I carry 1, plus 9 is 10, and plus 1 is 11. I want you to notice that I am indeed getting the 113 that we have over here. Therefore, we are confirming that the number that goes here is indeed 94. So we've already solved this question, which was just the first one. Simple, right? All right, let's move on. Exercise number 2, it says, identify the number that continues in the sequence minus 100 minus 10 minus 1. Well, that one is pretty simple, right? Because as you can see, all we're doing is dividing by 10. Right? I mean, I take this number and divide it by 10, and I get this one, right? Then I take this number and divide it by 10, and I get this one here. Do we agree on that? So what should the next one be? Well, I have to divide this number by what? By 10, right? So let's go ahead and divide minus 1 by 10. Well, a negative divided by a positive is still negative, so it remains negative. And here we have 1/10. 1/10. We can also write it as 0.1, right? That's the same as 1 divided by 10. so the answer should be negative. 0.1. Where is that? Well, here it is. Look, done. So the answer will be the one in option B. Also, it's important to notice that all the numbers are negative, so the answer had to be negative. So C and D couldn't be the answer? So, in case you were just going to take a guess, there was no point in considering C and D as possible answers. So, if you didn't know the answer, just guess between these two, but don't include these two, because they're positive, and we already knew the answer wasn't going to be positive, right? Agreed? Perfect. All right, let's move on to number 3, which says, the numbers in the sequence 3, 7, 11, 15, 19, and so on increase by 4 each time. The numbers in the sequence 1, 8, 15, 22, 29 increase by 7 each time. The number 15 is common in both sequences. Let's see if we have that, right? We have the number 15 here, and we also have the number 15 here. Then it says, if both sequences continue, what is the next common number in the sequences? Let's see. We could definitely make the list, right? Because it wouldn't take too long to find the next number that is common. Well, the next common number. Why? Should I tell you? Because look at the answer choices. They're actually small numbers, but we can also solve it another way. A little more elegant, but it's just a bit more complicated. Look, what am I going to do? Well, first I'm going to think about the least common multiple between the two jumps. I mean, this one here was jumping by 4s, right? So, plus 4 then here, also plus 4. And well, it's always adding 4. And we had agreed. Well, that's what the text says. That it ends up adding 7s, I'll put it over here because I don't have space there anymore. So the first thing I'm going to do is find the least common multiple between what? Well, between 4 and 7. Why is that? Well, because those are the steps the numbers are taking. I mean, those are the increments. So let's go ahead and find the least common multiple between these two numbers. You'll agree with me that the least common multiple between 4 and 7 is 28, right? Let's see. Anyway, let's do it, just in case you're not completely convinced about that. Remember that to find the least common multiple between two numbers, we simply ask, can either of these two be divided by 2? Well, yes, right? 4 divided by 2 gives me 2. This one can't be divided. I mean, it's not divisible by 2. So I bring it down again. Can it be divided by 2? Yes. Right, I get 1. This one can't. And finally, it can't be divided by 2, not by 3 either. Not by 5, but by 7, yes. And that's because 7 is a prime number. 1 divided by 7. Well, we're not going to write it anymore, since we've already reached 1. And finally, 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. Well, the least common multiple will be the product of these numbers, right? That is, the product of 2, 2, and 7. How much is that? 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 7 is 28, right? So now we have the least common multiple of 4 and 7, that is, of those increments we had. What do I have to do now? Well, if I already know they coincided at 15, then the next time they'll coincide at 15 plus 28, which is the least common multiple. Are you following me with that? Look, if I know they already coincided at 15, and now I start from there, I mean, imagine that now 15 is 0, so the next common multiple would have to be 28 units later, right? Therefore, I'm going to add 28 to 15, so that now I get the next number where they will coincide. Anyway, I'm going to do it with lists right now, so you can see that we should get exactly the same result. Here I get 3, well, I get 13, but I carry 1, and here I get 4. I'm already absolutely sure that they're going to match at 43, that next number where they coincide. But let's see. Maybe you say, like, I don't believe the teacher. Well, don't worry. Let's do it right now with the lists, so you can see that, in fact, it will work out. Sorry, I'm messing around too much here. I'll leave it and make the lists here in another color. Let's go. I'll make the list. Let's see. I already have some numbers here. I'm not going to copy them again. I'm just going to start from 15. Okay, so I'm going to start from 15 from here. Okay, in this one we have over here. Remember that this one goes up by 4 each time, so it would be 15 plus 4. That's 19 plus 4. 23 plus 4, 27. plus 431, plus 435, plus 439, plus 443. I'm going by fours. I'm going to keep going like this, but I won't continue further since I know the answer is 43 from what I said. It'll work out for me. Now, I'll check the other one. The other one was going by 7s, so it's the same. I'm going to start from 15. Okay, which is the first one where they matched, right? I just don't write the others. Okay, it doesn't matter. The point is, I want to know the next one, right? So, after 15 comes 22, because we're adding 7, then add 7. I get 29, add 7, I get 36, add 7, I get 43, and we're done. Look, here, as you can see, we're noticing that in fact, the next number where they match will be 43. Analyze these two methods carefully, and you'll see that in fact, the first method I used is much simpler because it's done with logic. This other method, honestly, doesn't require as much knowledge, but it's complicated. At the same time, it could happen that in some exercise, they give you numbers with bigger jumps, or the next number is very large, so you would have to make a really long list. That's why it's important for you to learn both methods. Okay, let's continue. Let's move on to number 4. What numbers come next in the sequence? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8. As you can see, this exercise might seem like it's poorly designed. In fact, it's not very nice, to be honest. But the truth is that it seems a bit strange, because normally we look at the difference from one term to the next. I mean, we see that from here to here there's 1. From here to here, there's 1 from here to here. There's 1 from here to here. There's 1. And from here to here, as you can see, there's 3. So it disrupts what we had going, right? So I recommend the following. When you see that the term-to-term relationship isn't that clear, let's say, check what kind of relationship there is. But by skipping a number, look, here I skip 1. I also skip 1. Well, there has to be another number here, and another number here. So here I'm also going to skip 1. Okay, now, pay attention to the relationship between the numbers you didn't consider just now. For example, in this case, it would be 2. Well, let me change the color so it's a bit more noticeable. Okay. So it would be to see the relationship between 2, 4, 8, and well, this one has to go here. So, come on, let's match up the ones in even positions with the ones in even positions, and the ones in odd positions with the ones in odd positions. That's what we're going to do. So come on, let's check. First from 1 to 3. Well, you have to add 2. Then from 3 to 5, you have to add 2. So look, here I'm always adding 2. So, from 5 to the next one, I suppose you have to add 2, right? And how much is 5 plus 2? Well, it's 7. So, following this pattern, the next number would have to be 7. So the answer, at this point, based on the pattern, would have to be option A. But since we're not so sure about that, let's do it as well. Now, the relationship with those in even positions. I mean, the ones we have over here, let's see what happens. Look, from 2 to 4, I can think of it as multiplying by 2. From 4 to 8, I think of it as multiplying by 2. And so, from 8 to the next one, well, I also think of it as multiplying by 2. So I end up with 8 times 2, which is 16. So the numbers would have to be 7 and 16. And I want you to see that these are the ones in option A, and that's it. This way, exercise number 4 checks out. Simple, right? Well, if we look at it that way, it is simple. All right, let's continue. In the next sequence of images, how many squares will make up figure number 11? Here, I recommend that you don't draw the pictures. Instead, as soon as you see that you have drawings, just assign numbers to them. So, here there's 1 square, so I put a 1 here. There are 3 here, there are 6. And then with these numbers, we're going to build the sequence 1, 3, 6. And well, then we would have to see which numbers come next until we find the term that's in the 11th position. So come on, let's see what's happening. Look, from here to here, I added 2 little cubes or, well, sorry, 2 little squares. From here to here, I added 3, right? Look, there were 3. And now I have 6, so here I added 3. So, I think it's a little clear. What would happen in the next one? If here I added 2, here I added 3. Then in the next one, I would have to add 4, right? So come on, I'm going to put it here as well. From here to here, we added 2. From here to here, we added 3. So in the next one, I would have to add 4. We do the sum 6 plus 4, that's 10. In the next one, how much? I would have to add. Very good. I would have to add 5. Right? So we do 10 plus 5, which is 15. In the next one then, I have to add 6 and 15 plus 6. Go ahead and do the operation. I get 21. Sorry. Very good. After that, I would have to add 7, and then we have 21 plus 7, which is 28. In the next one, I would have to add 8. 28 plus 8 is 36. In the next one, I have to add 9. I don't even know how many I've got so far. Please keep count for me. 36 plus 9 is 45. I think that's not it yet, right? Well, there's already a 45 here, but let's count again just to be sure. We have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It was 11. I'm missing 2. So we're still going. We've only got 9 so far. All right, let's keep going. Then we have to add 10, and well, 45 plus 10. That's easy. It's 55. And well, the next one should be the answer, right? Which would be adding 1155 plus 11 in total. That gives me 66, right? Well, this one right here is the term that's in position number 11. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yes, that's correct. So let's circle the answer that's marked in option B. Right. We're done. That was easy too, wasn't it? All right. Let's go with the next one. According to Series 4, it's the figure that comes next. Let's see. Here, I recommend that you check certain elements, that you look for certain differences. What do I mean by that? For example, what stands out to me most are the rectangles. I want you to see that here in the figure. Let me put it this way. In figure number 1, we have a rectangle lying down. That's how I'm going to say it. Okay, so here it's lying down. See that in the second one, it's standing up. In the third one, it's lying down again. So in the next one, it should be standing up, right? So it's lying down, then standing up, then lying down again. So next, it should be standing up. So let's see which ones can be answers for now. For now, A can be an answer because it has a standing rectangle. B can't be an answer because look, it's lying down again and that couldn't happen, right? So we've already seen that B isn't it. C could be. I'll put a check mark for now, and D can't be either. So for now, like this. For now, it could be A or it could be C. So we've already narrowed it down to A or C, right? We've already ruled out. Let me make it big so you can see. We've ruled out B and we've ruled out D. Now what's next? I recommend that you look at the differences between the figures. Look, this little triangle, I'm talking about the figures that are left, okay? The ones that could still be the answer. Those two little triangles are identical, so I don't need to focus on that little triangle since it's the same element. Now, this little circle and this little circle are the same. The rectangle and the rectangle are the same. The only thing that makes a difference is this triangle we have over here. Now, notice that the triangle, I'm going to say that in this case it's pointing up, and in this case it's pointing to the left. What do I mean by that? With that, we have a triangle like this. If I look at the vertex, I'll say it's pointing up, or, if viewed differently, to the left. Basically, it depends on where the vertex is. Remember that, well, here in the triangle, you can see that this base here is bigger. Look, this base is bigger. Okay, so if it's like this, I'm going to say it's pointing up. If it's like this, I'm going to say it's pointing to the left. If it were, for example, like this, well, here it turned out a little bigger. Like this, for example, I'm going to say it's pointing down. And well, if it were something like this, then I'm going to say it's pointing to the right. Sorry, right? So, up, left, down, right. Are you following me with that? Perfect. So, now let's check the triangles, how they are. So come on, let's check these that we have here. Come on. First, we have it pointing up. Look, it's pointing up. Then we have it pointing to the right. And then we have it pointing down. Look how it goes. It goes up, right, down. What comes next? Left, right. Look again. Up, right, down. What comes next? Left. Now let's see which one. Which one is pointing to the left? Not this one, because this one is pointing up, so it's not this one. So the correct answer indeed is the one marked in option C. Let me select this properly. And there we go. That's how it would look. Simple, right? Perfect. Let's move on. Exercise number 7. Identify the 8th figure in the following series. Let's see. I reviewed this exercise beforehand, and honestly, the exercise is poorly designed, you know? Well, but more than poorly designed, I think it's incorrectly solved. Let me quickly draw some little rectangles like the ones you have there. Maybe they won't turn out as nice, but I want to draw them right away. Also up to the 8th figure, let's see. Here they're already giving us up to the 5th figure, right? So we already have 5, so we're missing 3 more. I'll keep completing them to see which one we get. Let me just quickly do it properly here, because it's coming out really messy. Well, it's a little better now, right? Let's see. I'm going to start with this little shape that's like a diamond, okay? I mean, this part here isn't very clear in the figure, but it is kind of like a diamond, more or less like this. So, let's look at what position this is in, and then I'll start marking the path. Look, it's here first, then see how it moved to the right. Here you make an arrow. Okay, well, my arrow doesn't look very good. Let me make it a little better. This is an arrow. It moved to the right, then see how it went up a little, and now it appears. Here, we're only looking at the diamond, see? Then it went up a little more. Now it appears here, and then it moved to the left, and now it appears here. So I want you to notice that it's rotating counterclockwise, right? It's rotating in that direction. You agree with me, right? Perfect. So if it comes here, then a little toward the center, then all the way to the corner, then back here again. Well, sorry, no, I didn't let go. First over here, then up, then more over here, then over here. So what would we expect next? Well, for it to go down, right? Because look, we're here. So in the next one, it would have to come all the way here, to the center, right? In the next one, what would it have to do? Well, come over here. And in the following one, what would it have to do? Well, come over here. Are you following me? I'll mark it here again so you don't get lost. Look, it comes over here. Then it went up a little. Then it went up more. Then over here. So, what would it have to do? Well, go down then to the corner and then come back again. I mean, it would have to be here, right? The diamond shape, right? Now, since we already know where the diamond shape has to be, let's see which of the two could be the answers. Sorry, which of the 2, which of the 4 could be the answers? Let's see. A could be it because it does have the diamond shape. In this position, we're good. B can't be it because look where the diamond shape is, so not that one. C can't be it because look where the diamond shape is, so not that one either. And D could be correct since the diamond shape is in that position. So the correct answer is between A and D. But now, how do we figure out if it's A or D? Well, with the other figure. Because I want you to see that even though they're in the same position, the direction changes. Which way is the arrow pointing? And that's the most important thing, so we have to look at the arrow. I don't care about the rest. I care about where the arrow is pointing. For example, here the arrow is pointing to the right. Well, I don't know if maybe you see it a little backwards because we're on a monitor, but I think you see it the same. I mean, you see it pointing to the right. Now, this one here, which could also be an answer, is pointing up, right? So we have to figure out if the arrow is pointing to the right or pointing up. That's what we need to find out. Therefore, I'm going to do the following. Look at this pen. Imagine the tip of the arrow. Pay attention, only the tip of the arrow. I don't care about this little tail, okay? I only care about the arrow, only the arrow. Here too, just the arrow, and just the arrow. Ignore the rest. I don't care about that little tail. So look, let's check. First, in the first figure, just look at the turn the arrow is making, okay? In the first figure, the arrow is pointing down, right? So, this thing here, which is blue, I mean, my cap, is the tip of the arrow. So, it's going down. Then, look, it goes to the left. So it came over here. Then, look, in the third figure, it's going up, right? Then, in the fourth figure, the tip of the arrow is pointing to the right. In the fifth figure, it's pointing down. Do you see what it's doing? It's actually rotating clockwise, and in fact, it's doing it by 90 degrees, right? Again, look, The first figure is like this. The tip of the arrow. Don't forget. First figure, second figure, third figure, fourth figure, fifth figure. So, the next one, which would be the sixth figure, well, where would it have to be like this, right? It would have to be over here. The sixth figure, then the seventh figure, and then the eighth figure. The eighth figure would have to be over here. I mean, to the right. Now, which of the two could it be? Answer. The tip of the arrow is pointing to the right. Well, it's in option A. As you can see, the tip of the arrow is pointing to the right. Therefore, the correct answer is the one in option A. This one is not correct because the tip of the arrow, well, it's pointing upwards. That's it. So the correct answer would have to be option A. It's important to mention something here. I noticed that in the guide, they marked option C as the correct answer for exercise number 7. I mean, they marked this one. But that's wrong. I mean, that's not correct. So don't pay attention to it. If you're looking at the guide, you'll realize that this is incorrect. The correct answer has to be the one in option A. Check it calmly so you can see that. In fact, I'm not lying to you. Perfect. Well, let's move on to the next one. Well, to the next exercise. Question number 8. It says, which image completes the following series? Let's see. Here, I have to tell you that this exercise, from my point of view, is not entirely well designed. It's missing a bit more information. Okay, so it can be solved properly, but by looking into it a little anyway, we can at least try to solve it. Let's see if we can do it. Look, in the first figure, we only have a little circle in the center, let's say, and around it, well, I don't know. I'm going to say it's kind of like a rhombus, even though it's not a rhombus. Because you can see it's kind of curved, right? I mean, it's a circle and it has something kind of curved, you know, that's wrapping around it. But it's important for you to pay attention to how it is. Look at how this is, what we have here, which, I insist, is like a circle, but it has these little curves. So, to make it easier for me, I'm going to think about it this way. I'm going to think of it as a circle, okay? Now, around that circle, I'm going to think of it as if it has a rhombus around it. That's how I'm going to think of it, like a rhombus, even though I know it's not a rhombus, okay? And also, we have another type, of figures, which is also a circle, but in that case, it's like there's a square. But again, I know it's not a square, right? Because, well, it's not really straight. No, it's kind of curved, but anyway, it works for me. So I'm going to say it's a rhombus when it's something like this. And I'm going to say it's a square when it's, for example, something like this. Okay, so now having said that, let's solve it. Look, I thought about it this way. I thought of it as this one here moving down. But when it moves, a new one, well, another one appears in the position where it was. So if this one moves down, see that it already appears here, but now another one appears. In the position where it already was, as you can see, this one appears in the position where it already was. Okay, but now it's important for you to see that the next one that appeared is already white. Okay, look, this one was black. I mean, well, it was filled with black. It moved down, and the next one that appeared is already white. Now notice that when it moves down, instead of having a rhombus around it, because here it has a rhombus, right? When it moved down, now it has a square around it. Are you following me so far? Now, what happened next? This one moved to the right, and the same thing. This one here is following it. Therefore, since this one moves to the right, it now appears here. Now this one back here, notice that it moved back again. Once more, a new one appears where the previous one was, but now it's a different color. That's what I can see. I don't know if you realize what I'm referring to right now, but when you give the answer, you'll probably understand me much better. So there are actually several things going on. Number 1, this one is moving. I mean, it's really moving counterclockwise, like it's doing this. Look, like this, then this, then this. Okay, so it's going to form a kind of square. So it's moving, but as it's moving, it's changing. Also, what it has around it. Okay, but it doesn't change color. It's just changing what's around it. It goes from having a diamond. When it goes down, it gets a square around it. Then, moving right, it has a diamond again. Therefore, when this one goes up, I mean, this little black one, when it goes up, Now it's going to have a square around it again. Sorry. Right? And the others, well, they keep following it. And remember, the next one that appears will always show up in a different color. And with that information, I think that's enough for us to figure it out. So, please start thinking about it the way I'm explaining it. What should appear here then in the next one here? What should appear? Well, the filled-in little circle. Here I'll put a square, just like this, for reference, because I'm going to draw it here. Okay, so it's this same one, I'll put it here. So when this one goes up, the filled-in circle will appear, like this. But around it, what will it have? Will it have a diamond, or will it have a square? We agreed it changes, so it should have something like a square around it, right? I know it's curved, so it should reflect that, right? Therefore, let's start to rule things out. Look, this one here isn't it, because as you can see, this one actually has something like a diamond around it. So, no, this one isn't it either. Why? Because it's white, and it had to be black. This one here isn't it either, because it's white, and it had to be black. This one here could be it, right? So the answer would have to be option D, just as I'm explaining it. But anyway, I want to continue so you can see that in fact, everything else is going to fit, okay? Now if this one is moving up, remember that this one is following it. This one had a square around it. So, what's next? Well, it should have a diamond, so it will have to be white. Remember, when it moves, it doesn't change color, right? What changes is that now it will have a diamond. We agree. So, it should look something like this. And you can see that it does look like this. Now this one is chasing the other one. So, when this one moves down to the position where the white one was before, then it will become black again. I mean, the color doesn't change. But now, what will it have around it? Well, it had a diamond shape. Since it had a diamond shape, what will it have now? Now it's going to have a square, right? So, look, it is matching up for me. It is matching up, yes. So, we have a black circle with a square around it. Okay, and well, in the next one, it has to appear in a different color again, right? And it's set up differently. So I want you to see that in fact, here it has to appear. So the new one will be white, and it will have to be a diamond, and that's it. So that way, sorry, we would answer it. That's the way I thought of. I don't know if maybe you have a different idea. Honestly, I told you from the beginning that from my point of view, the problem isn't really well stated, and that was the only way I could think of to do it. And I came to the conclusion that the correct answer was D. And well, yes, it does show up. It seems that the correct answer is D. So, well, I'm satisfied with my work. I hope you understood me, and if not, I would really like to read your comments, for you to write them down here below. How did you come to the conclusion that the correct answer was D? And well, if you got a different one, let me know in the comments too. All right, let's continue. Let's move on to number 9. It points out, what would be the representation of the following structure if you look at it from above? So this is important here. I'm going to put my eye on this side, right? I mean, here, looking from above downwards. Let's start by looking at this line here. Okay, when I look at it from above, I'm going to see a line, right? So what would I see? Well, I would see 1, 2, 3, and 4. I would only see this. I would see something like this. I would see a line with 4, right? Well, they're all colored in. I'm not going to color them now. Later. Look, in the next one, I would see a line with 3, right? Look, I would see a line of 3 little squares stuck together there. So I'm going to draw it. Here, I would see a line with 3 little squares. Well, they're all supposed to be squares, okay? And then in the next line, well, I would only see a single little square stuck over here, right? This is the shape I would see if I look at it from here. Now, this one just looks similar, but it's flipped, so this isn't it. This one just looks similar. Here, it's missing another one, right? Look, for it to look like this, then it's not this one here either. As you can see, well, let's see. Anyway, let's check the last one. This one, well, no, right? Because it's also like it's flipped. So the correct answer is option C. That's it. There's nothing else to do. I recommend that if this exercise is too difficult for you, do the following. Get some modeling clay, literally modeling clay, and build that figure. Make it. And once you've built it, now look at it from above. What you see from above will be the answer, which, as I said, will be like option C, but do it. If you find this type of exercise difficult, that's the advice I give you. All right, let's move on to exercise number 10. Exercise number 10 is also, in my opinion, poorly designed. It's missing a lot of elements, because honestly, there's something here that just doesn't quite add up. Look over here. We have a square with a line, and here in the middle comes the next one. Over here we have a triangle that, let's think of it this way, has this line over here, and we don't have anything here. But then we have the rectangle again, we have the triangle. I don't know if I said rectangle here, but anyway, we have the triangle. It has the line over here, and now we have the triangle, but the line is on the other side. That's all the information we have, so I think it's not completely well stated. But the answer that would be the closest would have to be a square. But now, instead of having the line on the right side, it would have to be over here, right? Like on the left side, more or less. Referring to the following here, this one goes with this one, and this one goes with this one. It's just that here, is something really missing? What happened to this little line? I mean, there should be a little line here that doesn't appear over here anymore. So that's why I say the problem isn't completely well stated. But the one that comes closest would be the option that, well, this figure over here, which is actually in option C. That would have to be by checking the answers. Exercise number 10, let me see. It says that the correct answer for number 10 is yes, C. But honestly, I have to say, I'm not really satisfied with this exercise. I think it's not very well stated. Let's just say that's how it's in the guide. So we have to solve it anyway. Likewise, if you think you know another strategy to solve it, I'd like to read your suggestions down below. All right, let's continue. Exercise number 11 says, how many squares does the figure contain? Let's see here. Something that I honestly started doing was that I began, like this, to grid everything out. And then later on, I wanted to count them. But I realized I was getting a really big number and that number wasn't here. So I thought, well, that's probably not the right way to do it. What it's asking is, how many squares do you see? I mean, how many squares are there in total? Let's see. Here's one, for example, right? Look, here's a square. Well, let me mark it clearly. Let's see if it doesn't turn out too messy. So here's one. There we have one. Now I'm going to mark another one. For example, another big one would be this one over here. No, definitely there's another one here, right? So now there are two. Done. Let me mark another one. Here, for example, look, I'm going to mark it here with orange. So here we would have 3 squares for now. Here we have another one. Look, this one I'm going to mark here with purple. So we have 4 for now, right? The green, the red, the orange, and the purple. So that's 4. We still have 4 here. See that there are some small ones that are already marked, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I found 10. I can't find any more. So the correct answer for me would be the one in option D. Let me see what it says. Here it says that for exercise number 11. For exercise number 11, it says it's D. So well, I got it right. Here, I printed the answers, and it says that indeed, for number 11, the answer is option D. So yes, I got it right. They're already there then, the 10 squares? Squares, right? The squares that the figure has? All right, let's move on. Exercise number 12 says, identify the figure that completes a 3 by 3 by 3 cube made of small cubes. Let's see. Something you could do, which I actually won't do, would be to count, to see if that helps you narrow it down a bit. I'm not going to do it, because I really think it's much simpler. By visualizing, I mean actually seeing how we rotate the figure so it fits perfectly. But if that's difficult for you, count. I think that could be a good strategy. What do I mean by counting? Let's see. The whole big cube should have a total of 3 by 3 by 3 little cubes and 3 by 3 by 3. That's 27. That's what it should have in total. Now here you have a total of 8, right? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and well, here are 3 more. So in total we have 8, right? That's 3, 6, 7, 8. So if there are 8 here, to get to 27, I'm missing 19. So the figure that has 19, I don't know which one it is, but the one that has 19, if there's only one, which I don't know, because I haven't done it that way and I'm not going to do it that way, but the one that has 19, well, that's going to be the answer, right? What would happen if there were 2? Well, if there were 2 that have 19, or if all of them have 19, then you would definitely have to do what I'm going to do next, for those reasons, which is why I'm going to do it directly. This way, I insist, it's going to be a little more about visualizing. I mean, more with imagination. Let's do it. Look. First, it's important to notice something that is really absolutely important, which is that there's a gap here. This gap, if you notice, look, it's exactly in the middle. I want you to see there's a gap. Why? How do I know there's a gap? Because I want you to notice this is white, 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 and white. The only one that's not white is this one. Therefore, we are assuming that there's a gap there, and that gap is exactly in the middle. Look, it's in the middle of this 3x3 figure. I mean, if we look at this face, the one at the bottom, well, that bottom level, actually the one that's empty, is the one that's right here. Therefore, necessarily, in the answers, there should be one that goes in here, right? That would have to happen. So let's see. This one does have it. Look, this one does have it. I mean, this one will go directly in here. So, that one could be an answer. This one here also has it, so it can go in there. We're doing well. This one doesn't have it, so we've already ruled it out and C, isn't it? Now this one here also has it. So A, B, and D could be the answer. For now, as we are, let me remove this part, because now we're going to look at another element, another important thing. Let's see. This thing here, well, we're going to have to flip it, right? We're definitely going to have to flip it. And here, there are like two little legs. I'll call them that. Two little legs. And in the middle, there is another hole. I mean, between these two little legs. Look, between this one and this one, here we have a little hole. So, when we turn it, that should go on the front part of the figure, right? So, it should be something like this. Look, when I turn it over, this should look more or less like this. This here, okay, here are the two little legs. Well, these two little legs, and here is the hole. So, let's see, from the ones we have left, which one does have it? Meaning that it has the two little legs and the little hole. Well, that it has space for that. Look, this one does have it. Here we could perfectly fit that thing that looks like pants, right? Well, something like that. We could fit it in here now. We can put it here too, right? Well, actually, this one would go up here, right? We could also fit it in. But I want you to notice that it doesn't fit here, because this one doesn't have this little piece that it should have. Where is this little gap going to go? So D can't be the answer either. We're getting there little by little, right? Now we're down to A and B. So what do I recommend? Well, let's directly check the differences just like that. Just the differences between A and B. Let's see. Let's check. Notice that the most significant difference is that here it's covered and here we have a hole. So, that's what's going to make the difference for us. Now, this little hole here is right after this little stick. In other words, we need to put something here for option B. Here it's covered. Now take a look at the figure. I think with this, you already know what the correct answer is. Right, because this one does have a little piece that's going to fit in here. So the correct answer has to be option B. Option C? No. Why option C? No, because if I want to fit this shape, once I flip it, look, here it's going to fit like the pants. Here we have the little hole that was this one. Everything is fine except that this part is blocked. So since this part is blocked, this one won't be able to go in. Just this one. Just this one. So the correct answer has to be option B, because there we do have a little hole where this one here is going to fit. I want to say something that's really important. This kind of exercise, it's not really something I can just explain. How should I put it? Because I see some things that, well, a lot of times it's not so easy for me to explain to you what it is that I'm seeing. So it really is important that if you don't have this kind of spatial imagination, I'll call it that, you start developing it little by little. And how can you develop it little by little? Well, by practicing with other simpler exercises, but also by making the shapes. I know it might take you a lot of time. I know that. But do it if you can't imagine, or if you have trouble picturing how the shapes move. If it's already really hard for you to imagine what the shape over here looks like when it's rotated, then you need a lot of support. I mean, you need to do it physically first so you can see it. So, what do I recommend? Make the 17 little cubes out of modeling clay. Really, make them. Once you have them, now build this shape and then gradually build all the ones you have here. All of them, so you can see which one matches. You'll notice that in fact, it's going to be with B. just like we're seeing here. But again, I won't use the modeling clay here, because even if I show it on the screen, you still won't see it. It's the same. If I show it to you on a flat surface, you'll just end up seeing a flat surface, that's all. And in the end, it would be exactly the same. There's nothing like you doing it yourself and being able to observe it from different angles. All right, let's move on. Exercise number 13. On a farm where there are only horses and chickens, the owner counts 116 legs and 37 heads. Calculate how many animals there are of each type. Let's see. I'll start by saying that C will represent the number of horses, and G will represent the number of chickens. Now let me make an equation for the legs. I ask you, how many legs do horses have? Well, they have 4, right? And how many legs do chickens have? Well, they have 2. So the equation would look like this. Let me write it in black. It would be 4, which is the number of legs horses have times C, which is the number of horses, plus 2, which is the number of legs each chicken has, times G, which is the number of chickens. So, if I multiply the number of legs horses have by the number of horses, and add the number of legs chickens have by the number of chickens, then I should get the total number of legs, right? Which in this case is 116. Now, let's make another equation, but for the heads, so let's write heads here. And that's it. Something very similar, right? In this case, each chicken has 1 head, and each horse has 1 head. So what do I get? It would be that the number of horses plus the number of chickens would also be the same as the number of horse heads plus the number of chicken heads. So it has to be 37. All right, are you following me with that? We already have it, so our system of equations is ready. That's all we have to do. Let me rewrite my system of equations that I have so far, which would be this one here. I'll put it here. And that's it. We're just going to solve it right away, since I'm going to need that. I'm going to multiply the number of heads by 2. Well, multiply this equation by 2, the one I got with the number of heads. Why multiply it by 2? Because I'm using the elimination method to solve the system of equations. Okay, so right away, let me put it here. I'm going to multiply this equation by 2. You'll see how it's going to look in a moment. So, let's go. I multiply by 2 and put it over here. 2 times C is 2C plus 2 times G is 2G. And this equals 2 times 37, which is 74, right? Now look, I have this system of equations. This system of equations can now be solved very easily, right? Because if I subtract the 2 equations, I can eliminate the G's. 2G minus 2G, well, they cancel out. And now I'm only going to be left with just the C's, so I can find the number of horses, right? So let's do it. 4C minus 2C equals 2C. The G's have already been eliminated, and here I have 116 minus 74. Let's see, 6 minus 4 is 2, and 11 minus 7 is 4. So then we divide by 2, and I get that C is 42, divided by 2, which is 21. All right. So now we have that the number of horses is equal to 21. And C, the only one that has a 21 in the number of horses is option B. All right, we're done. That would be the correct answer. But anyway, if you want, let's also determine the number of chickens. It should be 16. It has to be, let's see. I'm going to this equation, which is the simplest one. So, I already found C, which was 21. Then I put 21 plus G. It has to give me 37. I subtract 21, and then I get that G is 37 minus 21. And from here, we get that G is 7 minus 1, which is 6, and 3 minus 2 is 1. So now we're finding that the number of hens, which was G, is equal to 16. And look, it's working out for me. We finished just like that. All right, let's move on to the next exercise. Number 14. It says, the sum of 2 numbers is 22, and their product is 57. It says, what are those numbers? Let's see. We could solve this by setting up an equation. But honestly, since they're already giving you the 2 numbers, it's actually much easier if you just do it by trial and error. Let's see. Let's first check which one matches the sum. It says the sum has to be 2211. Plus 11 is 22:9. Plus 13 is 22:19. Plus 3 is 22 and 5. Plus 17 is 22. They all add up to 22. When we add them, let's see which one I get. 57. When I multiply them, 11 times 11 is 121. No, 9 times 13. Well, I don't even know how much that is, but it's not. But it's not 57, right? Because 9 times 10 is 90, so that's already too much. I'll do it anyway. No, 3 times 9 is 27. Carry the 2 here. It would be 11, 117, so nothing to do with it, right? 3 times 19. Let's do 3 times 19. Okay, I'll do 19 times 3. 3 times 9 is 27. I carry the 2. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5. Yes, I'll take this one. Look, this one gives me 57. Therefore, the correct answer is the one in option C. Okay, 5 times 17 is 50. No. 85? No. 85. 85. So, well, that's not it either, right? It had to be 57. That's it. So the correct answer, I insist, it's option C. All right, let's move on to exercise 15, which says, what is the missing number? It might seem very complicated, but this one is super simple. Look, what are we going to do? Notice that there's a relationship that holds for each row. Look, 10 is equal to 25 minus 15, right? 10 is equal to 25 minus 15. 12 is equal to 36 minus 24. 36 minus 24. That does give 12. So what do I do? Well, I put the same thing, an equal sign and a minus sign. Then I ask myself, what do I do with the question mark? Or, well, what do I substitute the question mark with? So that when I subtract 20, I get 30 well. With a 50 look, if I do 50 minus 20, I get 30. And that's it. So the correct answer is the one in option D. Super simple, right? All right, let's go to exercise 16. And now, the last one, it says, consider that the number of bacteria in a certain culture doubles every 3 minutes. If there are 28 bacteria at 9 a.m., at what time will there be 224? I'm going to make a kind of little table here, let's put it now, and down here we're going to put the number of bacteria. Okay, just to separate it. So here there are 28 at 9 o'clock, and we're going to continue like this. Okay, come on, since it's every 3 minutes then, at 9:03, 9:03, we're going to double these bacteria. That's what it says, right? 28 times 2 is 56. We continue. We let another 3 minutes pass. So it would be 9:06. Double 56 is 112, right? 112. We're not there yet. It has to be 224. But we're almost there, right? Again, we let another 3 minutes pass, and I end up with 909. And double 112 is 224, right? 224. And look, we've made it. So the correct answer is that at 9:09, that is, at 9 minutes past 9 in the morning, we already have a total of 224 bacteria. And that's it. We're done. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and also send it to someone you think might find it useful. If you know someone out there who is going to take the exam for high school, tell them to watch this video. It will really help them a lot. See you next time. Take care and behave yourselves. Bye-bye.